Last year, luxury boutiques had waiting lists and prices climbing by 50%. Now, entire flagship stores are shutting their doors, their marble floors echoing with emptiness, while brands scramble to offer private discounts they once called unthinkable. What forced this stunning reversal, and how did decades of overpricing finally break fashion's golden spell? The fallout reaches far beyond empty shops. Inside the boardrooms of the world's most powerful luxury houses, the playbook was simple: raise prices again and again, and trust that demand would never falter. The strategy treated price and demand as untouchable, and for a time it worked. Between 2019 and 2023, flagship brands like Chanel and Louis Vuitton executed price hikes with clockwork regularity, sometimes 2 or 3 times a year. The numbers are staggering. A Chanel classic flat bag, once a $6,000 purchase, soared to over $11,000 by early 2025, an increase of more than 80% in just 6 years. Louis Vuitton's Speedy, a staple since the 1930s, doubled in price over the same period. Across the board, the industry's average retail price for iconic pieces jumped 54% since 2019. Executives justified these moves by pointing to rising costs, currency swings, and the need to align prices globally. Behind closed doors, another motive dominated. When growth in the number of customers slowed, higher prices became the only lever to keep profits climbing. Hermes, with its Birkin bags and legendary waiting lists, led the charge with 7% and 6% increases in the US during 2025 alone, citing craftsmanship and tariffs. Others, facing shrinking sales, pushed even harder. Gucci, for example, imposed double-digit hikes after a 12% drop in revenue. Burberry added a 10% surcharge on its trench coats and signature bags to defend margins after profits fell by nearly a fifth. The logic rested on a single assumption: that luxury demand was inelastic. As long as the logo was coveted, buyers would accept any price. For a while, this worked. In 2021 and 2022, brands rode a wave of post-pandemic spending and revenue soared. But by 2024, cracks began to show. Sales volumes started to slip, especially for leather goods, the very products used to anchor brand prestige. LVMH's fashion and leather goods division reported a 6% sales decline in the second quarter of 2025. Kering, the owner of Gucci and Saint Laurent, saw organic growth fall 13%. With fewer units moving, the only way to appease shareholders was to squeeze more profit from every sale. A leading market analyst described the strategy as a high-wire act. "You can only stretch the price so far before the cord snaps," she explained. The assumption that luxury buyers are indifferent to price has always been risky. When you double the price of a classic bag in 5 years, you are testing the limits of loyalty and reality. As brands scrambled to harmonize prices across continents, European shoppers faced 8 to 12% jumps in a single year, erasing the advantage of buying abroad. In the US, Chanel's March 2025 increase pushed the classic flap above $11,000, while Louis Vuitton's Neverfull reached $2,300. Meanwhile, watches and jewelry, more exposed to competition and to swings in metal prices, saw smaller bumps, but even a Rolex Submariner crept toward $12,000 after 2 increases in 2025. By the start of 2025, the industry's average annual price hike slowed to just 3%, the lowest since 2019. The aggressive expansion phase was over, but the damage from years of relentless markups had already been done. The next shock did not come from the boardroom, but from the sales floor. Boutiques that once buzzed with anticipation now echo with silence. In early 2024, the waitlists that defined luxury shopping simply vanished. The velvet ropes, the months-long promises of a coveted bag or limited edition sneaker, faded into memory. On a typical afternoon in Paris or New York, a visitor might find more staff than customers. Sales associates, once gatekeepers of exclusivity, now spend hours reorganizing shelves or straightening displays that no one touches. A former sales associate at a major luxury house describes the change as abrupt. "We used to have people lined up outside before opening. By March of 2024, I could count the number of clients on one hand. Sometimes no one came in for hours." The shift was not just about fewer shoppers. It was about the collapse of ritual. The private appointments, the champagne, the whispered promises of next season's drop, all lost their power when buyers stopped believing the story. Associates who once managed lists of VIP clients now reached out directly, offering access to pieces that just months before required connections or luck. Invitations to private sales became routine, not rare. For the first time, regulars received messages about exclusive events with discreet markdowns, sometimes 20, even 30% off, but only if they asked. Behind closed doors, the pressure mounted. Staff were pushed to move inventory any way they could. One associate recalls being told to make it happen, even if it meant bending rules about discounts or holding items for anyone willing to buy. The unspoken code, never discuss price, never negotiate, broke down in the face of empty floors and unsold stock. By spring 2024, the boutique experience had changed so completely that regulars began to notice. The air of anticipation was gone. Instead, there was a quiet urgency, a sense that the old world had slipped away, replaced by something uncertain and fragile. Those who once waited months for a single bag now received polite follow-ups, gentle reminders, and offers to preview entire collections. The message was clear, even if never spoken out loud. The rules had changed, and the demand that once seemed endless was now in doubt. On the secondary market, luxury goods once considered blue-chip investments now trade at a fraction of their original price. Data from leading resale platforms reveals a sharp correction. Listings for bags, watches, and ready-to-wear routinely appear at 50 to 70% below retail. A Chanel Classic Flap, which cost over $11,000 in boutiques, is now offered for under $4,000 and still sits unsold. The pattern repeats across categories. Louis Vuitton's never-full bags, Hermes accessories, even Rolex watches, items that once commanded waiting lists, are now languishing for months. A resale platform data analyst reviewing inventory from 2025 notes that the average luxury listing remains unsold for 180 days or more. In previous years, high-demand pieces often sold within weeks. Now, a swelling tide of supply meets shrinking demand. The volume of new listings surged by double digits in early 2025, but sell-through rates have dropped. Sellers, once confident their purchases would hold or even appreciate in value, are forced to slash prices repeatedly. Many set automatic markdowns, 10% every 30 days, just to attract a single inquiry. This price collapse is not limited to obscure or outdated pieces. Flagship items from the most storied houses are affected. A Birkin 30 in Togo leather, once a waiting list trophy, now appears on multiple sites at 60% below boutique price, sometimes with no bids after half a year. Cartier love bracelets and Patek Philippe Calatrava watches, long considered liquid assets, also join the backlog. The result is a visible disconnect between what brands still charge in store and what the market will actually pay. Resale platform operators attribute the glut to several forces. First, years of aggressive retail price hikes convinced buyers they could always resell at a profit. That illusion broke as soon as demand softened. Second, private sales and boutique markdowns have blurred the line between new and pre-owned, making buyers far more price-sensitive. And third, the flood of listings itself has become self-reinforcing. Buyers hold off, expecting further drops, while sellers chase the market down. The numbers are stark. By mid-2025, more than half of all luxury listings on major platforms were discounted by at least 50% from retail. Nearly a quarter had been online for longer than 6 months. The resale analyst sums it up: the old rules don't apply. What used to be an investment is now just another commodity, and it's not moving. Shoppers in their 20s and early 30s now walk past the same luxury storefronts that once drew crowds, barely glancing at the latest monogrammed releases. For this new generation, the old rules of status and display hold little appeal. Instead, the conversation has shifted to questions of value, sustainability, and authenticity. Gen Z buyers, raised in a world of fast information and endless options, have become experts at cutting through marketing hype. They share stories online about the true cost of luxury production, post side-by-side comparisons of materials, and call out brands for practices they see as wasteful or inauthentic. A 2025 survey by Bain & Company found that over 70% of Gen Z respondents listed authenticity as the most important factor in a purchase. Logos and heritage matter less than transparency. Buyers ask where it was made, who made it, and what it stands for. Many young buyers are turning to smaller labels, vintage shops, or even upcycled pieces, seeking items that feel personal and responsible. Social media is filled with posts celebrating thrifted finds and handmade accessories, while hashtag sustainable fashion and hashtag not just a logo trend among fashion accounts. The demand for sustainability is not just talk. Gen Z shoppers routinely ask about supply chains, recycled materials, and fair labor. They expect brands to back up claims with evidence, not just glossy campaigns. When a major luxury house released a new bag made from eco-leather, skeptical buyers demanded proof, and when they found little, they moved on. The days of buying for the sake of a label are fading. Instead, purchases are weighed against values and meaning. This shift has left many legacy brands scrambling. Collections built around bold logos and high prices now linger on shelves, while collaborations with artists or environmental groups generate more buzz than another limited edition print. Some boutiques have tried to adapt, offering customization or highlighting local artisans, but the underlying demand has changed. Gen Z wants to feel good about what they buy, not just look rich. As a result, the gap between luxury's old promise and the new reality grows wider with every season. For brands that once relied on exclusivity and status, the challenge is clear. The new luxury customer is not waiting in line for the next price hike. They are searching for something that feels real, responsible, and worth the investment. That redefinition of value is quietly reshaping the entire market. In early 2025, luxury warehouses in Europe and Asia began to fill at a pace that alarmed even veteran supply chain managers. Pallets stacked with unsold handbags, ready to wear, and accessories from the spring and resort collections sat untouched, tagged for markets that no longer existed. A supply chain insider working for a global logistics provider in Guangdong described the backlog in stark terms. By April, we had inventory from 3 seasons sitting in storage. Some pieces were still in plastic, never opened. The instructions were to hold, not ship, until further notice. The reason was clear. Chinese shoppers, who once accounted for more than a third of global luxury sales, had sharply reduced spending. Bain & Company's 2025 report showed mainland China's luxury market shrinking by nearly 12% year over year. In cities like Shanghai and Beijing, flagship stores quietly closed or scaled back, unable to justify the rent with traffic down by half. The slowdown rippled out across Asia, with Hong Kong and Seoul posting double-digit sales declines. For brands, the impact was immediate and severe. Merchandise destined for Asian boutiques was rerouted to regional distribution centers, then left in limbo as forecasts were slashed. By mid-year, insiders estimated that unsold product from the 2024 and early 2025 collections filled over 30% of available warehouse capacity in key hubs. A former warehouse supervisor in Italy recalls the pressure from headquarters. "We were told to prepare for liquidation. The volume was unlike anything I had seen. Entire racks of new season bags sat untouched, waiting for orders that never came." The overstock problem created a domino effect. With Asia no longer absorbing inventory, European and American stores received more product than they could move, compounding the glut. Brands authorized discreet clearance strategies, private sales, outlet transfers, and even quiet destruction of unsellable goods to clear space for new arrivals. Supply chain costs soared as warehousing bills mounted, forcing brands to confront the reality that years of aggressive production and pricing had collided with a sudden and painful drop in demand. Brands that once defined luxury by their mystique and heritage now find themselves adrift, struggling to answer a simple question: what do they stand for? Years of chasing trends and expanding product lines have blurred the lines between icons and imitations. The result is a growing sense of confusion. Consumers no longer sure whether a logo signals craftsmanship or just another attempt to cash in on hype. The tension between exclusivity and mass appeal has left many brands in a precarious position. Over-distribution, once seen as a shortcut to growth, has instead diluted the very aura that made these names desirable. When a brand's signature bag is available in every major mall, the promise of rarity evaporates. At the same time, those that clung too tightly to exclusivity found themselves with shrinking audiences, their prices climbing out of reach for all but the wealthiest few. Investors have noticed. In 2025, the pressure from shareholders reached a breaking point. Several high-profile luxury groups convened emergency board meetings as quarterly results disappointed and inventories ballooned. Headlines followed. CEO exits at major houses, creative directors replaced, and calls for a full-scale overhaul echoed across the industry. At Kering, the parent company of Gucci and Saint Laurent, the CEO's departure was announced just weeks after a 13% drop in organic growth. Similar scenes played out at Burberry and Richemont, where leadership changes were framed as necessary steps to restore focus and discipline. Analysts cited a loss of identity as a root cause. Too many product launches, too much reliance on short-term trends, and not enough attention to the core story that once set each house apart. A restructuring expert brought in by one of Europe's oldest luxury groups described the mood as urgent and unsparing. The expert said the era of infinite demand is over. Investors want a clear vision, and they want to know what makes this brand worth saving. On investor calls, questions turned pointed. What is the plan to rebuild loyalty? How will the company regain its sense of purpose? The answers so far remain elusive. What is clear, the old model, raise prices, expand distribution, hope for the best, no longer satisfies anyone. The industry stands at a crossroads, forced to confront the reality that prestige alone cannot paper over confusion and drift at the top. Right now, luxury's old playbook is broken. With over 6,000 retail closures reported in just the first half of 2025, prestige alone no longer guarantees survival. Shoppers demand authenticity and value, not just a name. As brands scramble to adapt, the definition of luxury itself is up for grabs. In this new reality, loyalty is earned, not bought. What does luxury mean to you now? Share your thoughts below.